Can we hear me? Did we get a good start? How about a thumbs up?
We can hear you.
All right. Jesus. Finally, I think I got all the Ecamm Live decided. I'm going to update again today. So I wasn't sure. Who knows what that will bring? Welcome to Tuesday. I hope you guys are all off to a good start. I sure am. We've got the Honorable Kate Garvey with us today. She's got some interesting stuff to chat with us about on a couple of new things that she's implementing into her business regarding fraud. So I'm excited to talk to you guys about that. But I'll open it up to the floor. Anybody have something going on a transaction that you want to get some feedback on, or something that you learned recently that would be good for the group? How long to wait before somebody's brave? Yes, it is snowing here in New England. We started with a little bit of hail, and now we are getting some snow. It's absolutely ludicrous. All right, if nobody has anything, Kate, I will. Go ahead, Steve.
So, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. So I had to put an offer in for a buyer. It's a weird situation from beginning to end. So they have a deadline for Saturday, highest and best, 5 o'clock Saturday. It's Thursday, so we have a couple days. And my buyer says, hey, I want to check it out. We try to schedule for 2 o'clock Saturday. That's what works best for everybody. Gives us a few hours to look at it, potentially put in an offer. Selling agent says, oh no, the highest and best is Friday. I said, oh, well, it's on MLS as your highest and best is Saturday. I'm like, all right. So we scramble. We end up seeing it that Thursday night. My buyer loves it, puts in an offer, 30,000 over asking with an escalation clause, really wants the house. And I submit the offer. The guy's like, I didn't get it. And I'm like, and I texted him right when I sent it. And I'm like, all right, well, I sent it to this address from this address. And then he's like, okay, yeah, I see it. I got it. I'm like, okay. So we're like 2 strikes already out, this guy. So then I message him on Saturday morning and just say, hey, do your sellers know when they're going to make a decision? Obviously, my buyer's pretty anxious about it. 24 hours, no reply. I'm like, all right. Sunday, I'm like, same message. Then he's like, then he just comes back and goes, yeah, they took a different offer. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, so no, we're not going to, have the opportunity with the escalation clause to try to beat them or anything. He's like, I can't make my buyers, choose which offer. And I said, I just wanted to verify that you explained to them what an escalation clause is and that they could have potentially had more money. And normally they would say like, hey, this was like a cash offer, your guy, has financing. I understand that. But I'm getting a weird feeling like this guy did not submit my offer. So my question is, if I see on this, when it, and the other thing is they took the offer Sunday. It's now Tuesday. It's still active. There's no contingent, anything online. If I see a number that's really low on there, you know, just over asking that was accepted, it just raised red flags to me, like almost. So what happens in a scenario, and I'm glad Kate's on here, if, you know, say it comes in at 10 over asking and we offered 30 over asking, and it's pretty evident at that point you didn't submit my offer to them, and how do you verify that, and what recourse do we have in a situation like that? Because I just have a weird feeling there's something hinky going on here, and this guy, is going to double dip. He has a buyer lined up that's going to then flip it and then get the sell side again. It just, everything about this transaction was shady from the start, with communication and changing the deadlines, and everything about it was just, I don't know. It might be the ex-cop in me that has all these instincts on it, but something's not right.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. That was a new one for me. Margaret, I see your hand is up. I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I guess I can respond to that if that helps. Two options for you. So you know that you can request the seller to sign your rejected offer. The other thing is you actually have a right as a realtor to request to present your offer in person to the seller. So just something to put out there. I know we don't exercise this as often, but if cases like this, you will then be in control of this offer presentation.
Steve, you aware of that stuff? Does that make you feel a little bit better?
Yeah, I know it. That's why kind of what I was asking, what can I do? That's great to know in the future. Being new and everything, because I just want to verify that these sellers saw my offer. I'd hate
Yep,
for them to find out down the road, like, oh my goodness, like we could have got this. What happened? I mean,
exactly.
I don't like getting people in trouble, but when someone's not doing their job in the best interest of everybody's clients, it's just not good for me.
Yeah. No, and I think that the pursuing getting the signed rejected offer, I'd be doing that right now. Hey man, no problem. My people are super bummed. Like we thought we put our best foot forward. Can you just make sure your seller signs that offer that he rejected it? Right. Um, Anybody else have any other thoughts? Because this is a dicey situation. Um, Adam.
Yeah, there's a thousand different ways we can go here. Um, First is not to assume, I'm pretty hesitant about switching my listings over to contingent. I know we're supposed to, but at the end of the day, the amount of times I've gotten burned where all of a sudden 24 hours later that buyer doesn't want to buy a house, and or dad says you never should have put an offer on that house, or you paid too much. So, that's not necessarily a telltale sign. I've seen stuff sit active for a little while. Plus, you also never know the terms of that offer. I think there's situations where sellers would take potentially $20,000 less for the right situation. Um, who knows? Maybe they're, I don't know if this was a cash offer. It sounds like it was a flip property, but they could be closing in 2 weeks. They could be letting them buy their house. Who knows? There's all kinds of situations. So just seeing that it sold for $20,000 less doesn't mean much. And sometimes people negotiate a price reduction in lieu of repairs. So just don't make an assumption like that. Um, I just wanted to add that context is I get what you're saying, but it doesn't always mean that. And the other thing is don't ever trust a highest and best deadline. Just because they say highest and best, I promise you your buyer's uh, sale and accepted an offer before that highest and best period. And the other comment I'll make as a listing agent is I typically do appreciate the agents that are a little bit more aggressive. Hey, did you get my offer? Want to make stuff? Typically shows that that buyer is pretty interested in that house and it's going to be a good transaction. Versus the agent that just sends a strong offer and never calls you. You're like, this is kind of weird. And when that agent's calling you as a listing agent, it's an opportunity to try to get as much info as the buyer, because typically that buyer's agent's going to share as much as they possibly can to get that offer accepted. So I don't think you did anything wrong by following up. I thought you were going to say that he accepted an offer before the deadline, but just another thing not to trust is those deadlines, because you don't have to wait. All my listings say seller has the right to accept an offer at any time. So just want to throw that out there.
Yeah, those are all good points. Lori, I see your hand up.
I just wanted to piggyback what Adam said about not, hesitating if you're missing a deadline, because the presentation itself, you don't know when that's going to happen. I was actually in a situation where I had a listing and I had 18 offers. My seller lived in California. So her 6 o'clock was my 9 o'clock. And we were on the phone going through them all. And sure as shit, a fantastic offer by a really wonderful agent actually came in while we're on the phone that late. And she's texting me going, I'm so sorry. I just got off the road and I told my client, let's just try. And it was the winning offer. So, if I didn't get that offer, she still sent it. And if you, whatever offer you have to present no matter when, even if it's, you're under contract. I got this other offer. I just need to show you,
Yeah. Yeah. So, and this is even, guys, I've seen this happen even after you verbally accepted. And I don't know if you put that little tidbit in on yours, Lori, right? Like you call the other party, hey, look, I just talked to my clients. They're at work, but they want to go with your offer. They got a function tonight at work. They'll be able to sign it in the morning. Right? You got to be careful with that and going to your client and saying, yep, we got the deal. Right? Because between that phone call and tomorrow morning when they sign, if another offer comes in, that listing agent has to present it. If it's better, right now does that seller really care about their word? Or do they want the extra 5 or 10 grand in the better offer that came in? And so you guys as listing agents have got to be careful with the communication of, yes, it's yours, right? It should always be, hey, here's the deal, right? But I'm just letting you know, because I've had this happen in the past. If another offer comes in between now and when they sign at 9 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to present it. And if they want to go with that, there's nothing that I can do as a listing agent, right? Because we want to keep these relationships with other agents, but that's just the reality. You might think something sneaky is going on. And personally, I believe that more than 50% of the time, something sneaky is going on. I really do. I think there's just a lot of bad agents, and maybe sometimes they don't even realize that they're doing things that aren't in the best interest of their client. But other times shit just happens, because I've been the person that the stuff happened to, and I'm like, man, the buyer's agent's going to think I'm, pulling a fast one here. So, Lori, your hand was up again.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that another conversation I do have with my clients is what the end result of the whole transaction is going to be, is going to usually be different than the offer, because especially in these multiple offer situations, they watch for when that house closed. You bet your ass they want to know what it closed for, and they'll call me, Lori, that it's 10 grand less than what we offered. And I'm like, hey, remember the conversation we had? Like, there's a lot that happens during a transaction. Appraisal could have come in less. Maybe they didn't have a gap coverage. There could have been a credit of some sort. Like Adam was saying, the price reduction, rather. Like, there is a whole journey that happens from the time of the offer to the time of closing. And that price usually isn't exactly the same. So I always try to remind people of that, when the offer, they don't get it, and just say, hey, look, you're going to go look and you're going to see the final closing number might be different, because people get really upset, and then they're always watching to see what it closed for. Even if we're under contract and we're closed, they're still watching it. They want to know.
Good stuff, Steve.
Yeah, I appreciate everybody and their input. I guess my biggest concern with this guy is he doesn't run his business like I would. His communication is lacking. He doesn't give any feedback. I've tried calling. He'll never answer the phone. I have to text him. And if he just gave some feedback, I think he would not be in the situation where we're talking about him on our Tuesday morning call. If he just said,
Yep.
hey, great offer, we actually took one that was less, possibly, it might be higher, but he has not even said that,
Right.
and he just sent an email to everybody apparently and just said, my sellers took an offer. Thanks for your interest in the property. And that was it. Not and I'm trying to call him and get can you give me some feedback? Can you tell me, what we could have done to strengthen it, for my future? What could we do? Nothing. And it's just very short. And it just may be the fact that he just doesn't communicate well, and he just doesn't care, where me, I want everybody that gave me an offer, if I'm on the listing side, to know that, hey, I really appreciate it. This is why. So they're not sitting here wondering and coming to conclusions. And I can tell my buyer, hey, this is why. This is what happened. Now, my buyer's jumping to conclusions as well. He's got a last name that, you can tell his ethnicity on it, and, was that presented? And, another thing that came up talking about this was, when you present offers on the listing side, have it offer 1, 2, 3, 4, and don't show any names whatsoever. Make sure that you don't want any fair housing issues. So just a lot of things, but I'm curious to see what it went for. I'd be sleeping better at night if it goes at what or above what we offered, and I can report that back and say, hey, it was a numbers thing. He just didn't communicate that to us very well.
Anybody getting the jump to conclusions reference? To be a great game that you could play. Who knows this reference?
Office Space.
Oh, thanks, Steve. Thank you. You made my day. With us all being semi-office people, I know you guys are on the road a lot. If you have not seen Office Space, shameless plug. Great movie. Well, Kate, you ready to follow this one up?
Sure. I love the movie Office Space, by the way. It's a great movie.
All right. Let's
I
talk
actually
some
just
fraud.
I just learned a lot listening to you guys.
Yeah. That's the
it's kind
idea of the
just-
call, Kate. This is the idea.
I know, but I'm only on it once a week, but it's kind of nice to hear that side of things, I mean, I know that we all have to follow things ethically as, as attorneys, as agents and stuff like that. So that was just kind of an interesting talk to me, and I learned. So thank you guys for that.
Wait, this is for Steve Henn. This is 2 weeks in a row. He's bringing it on morning call. I appreciate you, Steve. All right, Kate.
So I know you guys have probably heard about, deeds, like fraudulent deeds and things like that. It's been in the news a little bit more lately than it, has in years past. And I just kind of wanted to talk about a couple of things, fraud in general, that as attorneys, what we have to deal with. And I kind of thought it would be a good thing to talk about, of like how you guys as realtors can help with that. Things attorneys are concerned about often is wire fraud. We're seeing more and more wires, even for, deposits and stuff like that lately. And then sometimes, it's the buyers wiring closing costs, or us wiring to sellers their proceeds and whatnot. I actually had one transaction, this was years ago. I get to the closing table and my guy was like, "Oh, I sent you $40,000. I was like, "No, you didn't." And luckily,
let's just pause here, Kate, because I want to kind of talk through, because I don't know that everybody knows how is this wire fraud happening, right? So I think the most common one, and I'd love to see if anybody else has seen some other stuff, but the most common one that I've seen is that somehow these hijackers, or whatever you want to call them, criminals, they get a hold of people that are involved in a transaction, right? And they are going to somehow send an email to the buyer that's going to request the wire, right? And so it looks like maybe it's coming from an attorney in a transaction, it's coming from the listing agent in a transaction, and it's going to give wire information to the buyer. And
correct.
The buyer just
a lot of times
gets the email and sends the wire.
A lot of times it's an email that's very similar to yours. So mine is kgarvey@attorneygarveylaw.com. And it could be something simple like K_, or it's very similar to what my email address or your email address would be. So people think, okay, well, I've been talking to this person the whole time, and they don't realize that small little difference. And, for me, when I send,
here's the other
pardon?
thing, not only the email address, but the body of the email, right? If they can intercept a couple of emails and see what a templated wire instructions email looks like, all of a sudden it's coming from an email address that's similar. The body looks similar. It's, if it's timed right, all of a sudden just looks like, okay, yeah, I got to give my deposit, right? And I guess this is how I do it.
Mm-hmm. On my wiring instructions, and I know, some attorneys don't wire at all. But on my wiring instructions, it says you must call and verify. So somebody has to call my office and talk to one of my staff members, and they verify everything. People don't always do that. And, as I was saying before, I had an incident where a guy wired $40,000 to Lord knows where. And he had to file a fraud thing with the government and all that kind of stuff. But it's stuff that we see and we're concerned about often, because it's a lot of money. $40,000 is a lot of money. $1,000 is a lot of money. So a lot of attorneys have been taking an extra step in their wiring process. There's certain softwares out there. The one I use is Certified ID, where we use a company to ultimately send this wire, verify all the wiring instructions, and make sure it's legit. And then on the opposite side, we provide that service to our customers, or to, if I'm on the sales side, the buyers, where they feel safe and they send the wire through that service so they know that I'm getting it, and it's ultimately not a scam. So a lot of attorneys have been doing that lately. I see more and more. And it's just an extra step that it doesn't slow things down. It might slow things down like a minute on my end just because I have to type some things into a computer. But it just gives that extra level, so everyone feels safe about wiring. Like I said, whether it's $1,000 or $100,000. And I just think when it comes to your clients, not everybody wires, right? I wire almost every day, but this is the nature of my business. I'm happy to talk to somebody about a wire and what exactly that means. Every bank is a little bit different. I always say to talk to your bank before you send a wire to make sure you can do same day. Some banks don't do that. Sometimes it's, 2 days, depending on what kind of account it is. But it's something that, a lot of our clients aren't familiar with. So, like I said, I'm happy to have a conversation with them about wires. I'm happy to, talk more about wires. I know it's not really that exciting, but it's something that we're dealing with more and more now. And I just want everybody to be protected.
I'm going to pause you there, Kate. I see, Linda, you've had your hand up patiently. What do you got?
So when this happened to my client, my buyer client, it unfolded exactly as you and Kate have just described. So apparently first, my client Peter received an email from attorney Carl, and the email address was changed by just one letter or an underscore or something like that. And it was Carl directing Peter to please wire $36,000 to, the account below, whatever. Then they changed my email address ever so slightly and sent a follow-up to Peter. Peter, did you receive Carl's email instructing you to send this wire? Please do so straight away, right? So the good news in this instance is that it was so early on in the transaction that it threw up a red flag for Peter. And Peter called me and said, Linda, did you and Carl send these emails instructing us to do this wire? I said, oh, heavens, no, of course not. And then we looked at the email addresses, and sure enough, that was exactly how the fraudsters got into the accounts and handled it. And make no mistake, these people are professionals. This is their full-time job. This is where they put all of their efforts. And it's our understanding that they're actually based in Somalia. And so government here, their governments have no interest in getting involved with any of this stuff. They don't care. Right. So it is critical that we let our clients know that they need to get verbal verification of any wiring instructions that they receive electronically. Get on the phone, pick up the phone, call, and make sure that these are valid wiring instructions. But this happened, and fortunately, we were able to have our client not have the painful loss of that $36,000. And at that point, I went to my managing broker and shared this terrible story with him. And that is when our company, he instated a policy that everybody needed to have, a disclosure of a possible wire fraud. Exactly. But yeah, it's a dreadful thing. And to your point, it doesn't matter if it's 36,000, 1,000, whatever. It's terrible. And once it's gone, in most instances, it cannot be retrieved. Exactly.
Yeah. You'll definitely see more and more now wire fraud. Like when you're giving a PNS, a lot of people add addendum A's and TRIDs and things like that. You're seeing more wire fraud documents too for everyone to sign. I've started doing that as well. And some attorneys too, like I have insurance because that one time scared me half to death. So I have insurance, like cyber insurance and things like that. And the new program, the new software that I have also has insurance. So if a wire is sent, in error or fraudulently, whatever, I've got coverage for that money. And like I said, you'll see a lot more attorneys doing that. Sometimes there's a cost that they'll pass on to a client. It's not a lot. It's like $20. But just so you guys are aware, you will be seeing that a little bit more often. But, to Linda, to your point, let your clients know if you're sending a wire, do not send a wire without talking to the person. If it's to me, make sure you call Garvey Law and say, hey, I got this. Let me verify wiring instructions. Especially early on, because most of the time no one's asking for a wire early on unless it's for a deposit. And usually, you know what your deposit is, and it's not often $36,000.
Any other comments or thoughts or questions on the wire fraud? Has anybody else seen a different scenario? I think the key is just talking to your buyer clients early about verbal, right? And I guess, the next phase is these criminals are always trying to get a leg up, right? Is they're going to spoof the phone numbers and there's going to be a verbal, right? Maybe you get a voicemail, right? Like
to that, a lot of the software that, for example, that I have, we can verify people. So you see a lot of times for like just pieces of land, somebody from California really wants to sell this piece of land and wear Mass, and, there's fraudulent deeds and things like that. Like the software that I have, you can verify everybody in the transaction too. So you'll learn that from the beginning too, whether or not it's a legit transaction. So that's something that, once the what do you call them, fraudsters, once they get to that level, that's an extra level that this kind of software can do.
Anybody else have some final thoughts on fraud, wire or otherwise?
Yeah, I was gonna say I'll see your $36,000 and call you a million. Angela, actually, I think a year or two ago, she had a client who was wiring upwards of $1 million to a title company and wired it into some like Haitian or Somalian account. And I don't know how, I mean, the way that you guys do your business, you guys work miracles, but they were able to successfully either, I don't know, it's probably from the insurance, but they were able to get that money back just in time for closing too. So I thought that was pretty incredible.
My God, I would have died.
Yeah, right. So
That
when we
just gave me a
found
heart
out,
attack.
we found out that it was like $1 million transaction. Like my heart stopped and everything else just hearing about it. And apparently her client was super cool. He's like, yeah, you guys will figure it out. I'm like, what?
Oh my God. Wow.
Yeah.
Kate, we've just got a question here. What's the name of the software that you're using?
I use certified. It's like certified, but the ID is like capital. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
like CERT app, and then ID is kind of like, because it's all about IDing people and things like that. I'm happy to share that information with you guys if you'd like me to. And I know that there's others, but I know like my title companies like Caddick and Stewart and all of that are really, really pushing it. And, like I said, you're going to be seeing it more and more, but I'm happy to give you those companies if you'd like.
All right, guys, we are up against it. Let's take a quick look at what we have for some additional learning today. What do we have? 4 different opportunities: trends and tactics mastermind, mastermind for Instagram for normal people, building a referral-based business mastermind, and psychology-driven sales. So a bunch of different opportunities to learn a little something. Hopefully you guys put some deals together today. Go have yourselves a kick-ass Tuesday, and we'll do it again tomorrow morning. Take care.
Thank you so much. Have a great day, everybody.